Hi guys. I'm so excited to have you here, you early birds. Thank you for joining me today. Um, I'm here today to talk about API team characteristics and best practices. I'm from Toronto, Canada. You can see Canada sign here. So here you can find my contact info if you've been interested getting in touch. So I'm a backend developer. I worked as a software actually architect for a couple of years, but now I'm more concentrated on API development. For job, I'm an SD at Amazon Toronto, working on AFD technologies, which is mostly APIs as well. Let's start. So let's say to start, we're not here to say what is the importance of the team. We all know what is the importance. Team is important. There is a lot of great says about team. Like as there is a great say from Steve Jobs to say great things in business are never done by one person. They are done by a team of people. We are here today to say what is now the importance of the team to make an API. API is like you can grab all this information, apply for maybe a software, a web app, but like we are more on API to just make this scope a little bit smaller. So we want to talk about what is the best practices to put a team together to make a product which is an API which can live longer and be stronger. So like team is important, like Avengers were really more successful as a team as well. So here I made a pie chart just to show what are we gonna cover, because I'm gonna have a lot of content. I don't want you guys to get lost. So we're gonna talk about API just to get in a common definition that what do we mean that we're talking. Also, we're gonna talk about API as a product and the roles. And at the last, but not least, we're going to talk about API team. Now that we learned or we actually reviewed, let's say, everything together, let's say, okay, as a team, how to put the things together. And then questions if there was time for sure. API. So there is API acronym stand for application programming interface, and also APIs helping us to expose business and a lot of definitions. But what we want to talk today, when we say an API, we're not talking about any specific technology here. We're talking about a simple definition. So each API has three elements: the interface, which is how we expose the things, and the code, which is what is behind the interface, which combination of these two is an instance. So it means that, like when I say API, I mean an interface and implementation, which is deployed somewhere on a server on production. So I don't mean like this is on-prem, this is on cloud, nothing. It's just something deployed there. So we want to be technology agnostic because the same thing about team, about what to do, apply on everything, right? So on different technologies, it's more about how we want to do that. Like the same, we are making the same thing. So let's start with API as a product. And so I tried to make like here a tiny pie chart that I don't, like as I said, I don't want you guys to get lost. I want to know that where we are now with this content. So API as a product. It's like you hear a lot of things like software as a service, platform as a service. And that's correct. API as a product or API as a service, it's actually meant to indicate and important for the API as well. Means that it's not just a middleware that we make to just simplify the work. No, just we are here today to look at that as an important thing, which actually it's worthy to like have a proper design, implementation, and release. It's not just something to facilitate the work. It can be a product itself, right? We're going to talk about examples about that. So now what to do to change this API from utilities actually to a full-grown product, right? There is, like we can encapsulate in three important things, which we can say design thinking, customer onboarding, and developer experience. These are like, are we going to go deeper at what these things mean? like when we say developer experience, it's exactly the user experience. But for an API, the user is us developers, right? That's why I say just the developer experience. You might hear it like everywhere. They call it like DX, like same as UX. So what does this mean? What does design thinking means? So design thinking means that, okay, we got to know our audience. So who are we making the product for? Who are we making the API for? And we need to have empathy, means that we need to understand what is their problem that we are trying to solve, right? And we need to like gather the ideas and be able to prototype them, experiment them, to be able to like come up with a solution, right? That's what they call design thinking. It's a big word, but like we do it every day for the web apps. But now we want to say, okay, to make an API, let's do the same. Customer onboarding means that like we want to like for the customer onboarding, when I say quickly show customers how to use your API, this quickly is the importance, means that customer has to start to work with your product and just like do a wow, like quickly, maybe in an hour, a developer can do something with your API, not taking like a week or so. And like giving them a smooth experience to work with the product that you're making. This is really important. And the last one is developer experience. Again, for developer experience, we need to know our audience. Who is the audience? But how to do that? We need to measure data, right? We need to collect data and then do some measurement, like by error reporting customers do, which are developers, by tracking the usage that they do from our product. And it's better to make, we want to make it safe and easy to use. Why? Because we want to make a positive relationship with our customers, which are developers. By this tree, it's like I said that you want to say that API is an important thing. API as a product is like showing the importance. And these are like three things. There is way more things actually. These are just the encapsulation that what to do. Like if I want to give you a success story, going to be Stripe. Stripe is a really successful API. Like they call them, like this API as a product, if you Google, like people say, oh, it's like API driven. It's the same. Like for so many companies, they call themselves API driven, means that they care about API, it's their product. Stripe is a good example. Why? Because they, like the reason that they started doing, they said, oh, we want to do some payment services that doesn't suck. And it's like amazing. It was a good reason. And then like, I don't know if any of you use the Stripe API. It's amazing. Like you get to, they have proper documentation, which means for that developer experience, they show you really good how to use it, and also onboarding it actually. And they know the problem. They know what was the thing that people were suffering, and they solved it. So in order to say what are we doing in API, I came up with two things. Not me, actually, there is two things in board. There is what and how. Like what means that we want to, like you definitely heard this, that they say we want to build the right product. It's about what. So we're going to refer to what all over the this session. Means that it's more about the business objective. What are we making, right? Building the right product. Come up that, is this actually, should we build this product at all or not? And also how. How means building the product right. Now from the what, we came to how. And now, like, let's meet the technical objectives. Like, it's more leaning toward, like, technical objectives we have. So it's just about what we do. Like, and to make a product or an API, let's say there is a lot of work domains involved. So a lot of things that we do, like strategy, design, documentation, implementation, testing, deployment, security, change management, monitoring, discovery. I'm sure you guys heard about all of this. We're going to talk about this, that, okay, who in the team going to use, we're going to use to do this. So we said API is a product. each product in the world, it has a life cycle. Like you go to, but like for example, in 10 years, you cannot find the same Nike shoe, right? Like each product, like a normal one, a shoe has a life cycle. Here is a diagram about like what is a like product, like general product, the generic product life cycle. So here we are measuring by the sales, means that by the money that they make off that. So if you see in the world, this is like a diagram out of internet. It's like everybody in sales knowing that when you are introducing something, it will be out there forever, right? So it's like introduction, growth, maturity, decline, withdraw, but it's just by the money. Like sometimes like when it doesn't worth it, so you just withdraw the product. Like you can't find the same shoe, for example, 10 years you got it anymore because it doesn't work for the company to make it anymore, right? Same stand for API. APIs has life cycle, right? When you are making a product, it can't be there forever. It has a life cycle. It has a maturity model. So, but API life cycle, because of the nature of software, it's a little bit more complex. And also the milestones for that is a bit different. I wish it was just by money, but it's not just by money. There is other components. So here, like we're going to discuss this further by that, but just getting an idea that what I mean by the life cycle. It's like Inception when we are thinking about making an API, right? Each product has some inception point that somebody somewhere think, oh, I want to make this. So that's what Inception, like nothing in place, just people talk about things. They are not making anything. And it's not our favorite phase, which is development. Like I know all the developers just like the development. You can just code, break things, you don't care about things. And that's right, that's the stage because API is not out there and then you can do whatever you want. You can just release, like break everything. And then introduction, that's where actually you open the doors. You say, oh, I have this now, come use it. That's like tricky ones because now we can do like breaking changes anymore. And they realize when people actually notice that we are there, like APIs, like for example, Stripe, right? It was there for a couple of months, maybe some successful ones. There are like the introduction to realize it's shorter. But then people notice that, oh, there is a product there, let's use it. And that's where like we get a lot of customers and also, but it's going to be heavier on us because you can't change anything anymore. And the maintenance, when it's like you don't make so many changes, it's on maintenance. Or when I say not so many changes, means that even on the deployment on cloud or on, you don't do things much. You just want to keep your customers, that's all. And the retirement, it's like withdraw. Like you just say, okay, go rest in peace. I don't want you anymore, product. So we're going to get back to this. Milestones. So let's say how we can come up with the milestones for this. Like we've said, okay, these are stages, but like what is the milestone for each stage? And then how we can say, okay, I went to the other one, or where I am, or how am I doing, right? As a company, as a team. So let's say to come up with milestone, we definitely need to define some goals and objectives. So when I say goals and objectives, like I don't mean like business or technology ones, right? But we need to have some goals. We need to say, okay, like for example, I want to make an API for like banking. I want to like get it 10 bank here. I don't know how many banks you guys have in Australia. I mean in Sydney, but like we have a lot in Toronto. So you want to get like 10 customers as a bank, and that's your objective. It can be like, or you say, oh, I want the TPS to come under like zero, like not zero actually, like the TPS, yeah, come like under something or higher than something, right? And so this, what I said is that like about TPS or the things that you measure, you say, I want to come up with some measurable results as well, right? I say my goal is that having performance like this, now how to measure it, right? Like come up with the numbers. And also measure and monitor. If you don't have data, you can't say where you are. So there is some samples like for, I mean, not sample, like let's say there is some technology or mechanism to come up with this. I don't know if you guys heard about OKRs, like objectives and key results and KPI. Like most of us developers, we use KPIs on every day. Like when you are having a metrics or you set an alarm on that metrics, those are actually the KPIs. You want to know how like the software is working, how it's doing. So but like if I wanna, like OKRs actually, they are goal systems and they are more trendy because so they don't say technical how you're doing, say like more about I have an objective, so I wanna know actually like what is my objective and the key results, that how like where am I and how am I doing, right? If I want to say a good success story about OKRs or defining objectives, I'm going to come up with Google. Google actually embraced this OKR object, like come by like objectives and key results when they actually were a really small team, but like about 40 people I heard, they started to go with objectives. It's not like, oh, I want to like sell this much. No, they said I have this objective, I'm going to meet it. API roles. Now we talked about API and also API as a product. So we did two of the things. So the third thing, the last thing before going to the team, gonna be the API roles. So what are these API roles? So here I put actually a couple of bulletins because the role is a little bit misleading. So when we say we want to talk about API roles, actually we want to talk about like some responsibilities. Like we are not talking about a person, we are not talking about the title. Why? Because in different companies you might have different titles, but you are doing the same thing, right? And you hear everywhere people give you like some titles and you never heard, but then you ask, okay, what are you doing? And they are like the lead developer, but some companies, they say technical director, for example, but they are the lead, but because the company size is like 2 people, like one should be director, right? For sure. So for the roles, let's say when we say what is the role, we want to talk about these common responsibilities and common tasks that they do, and which is in a defined scope, right? Because job has to be done. It doesn't matter where you are, what company, the same thing has to be done. We talked about those work domains, right? Like when it's strategy should be done. You want to call that person like program manager, or you want to call that person like CTO, maybe doing, it's possible, I saw that, doing like the strategy should be done. So then we are more focused on these responsibilities and tasks to get the job done, not the person, not the title. But like on the questions, for sure we can discuss these things because it might be different. First one is product owner or product manager. So for this, let's say this, we talked about what and how. This product owner or product manager is the one that defining and describing actually what of that API, right? Is say like writing the, making the right product. That was what, right? That's more strategy. Product owner is the person who is doing that. Or let's say not the person, is the role which is doing that. Product owners are the main point of contact, and also they are the ones making sure we have proper goals in place, like objectives, right? And they are making sure that all the parts are moving properly. It's like they are shepherding the product for us. And it's not just making the product, it's like because they are first point of contacts and they are actually contact, and also they are the one observing things. It's not just developing thing, right? It's about that customer experience and developer experience that we said as well. Like they are the one making sure that we have proper onboarding as well. So there is a lot on these people, and I know so many of companies, they don't have product owner or product manager, and the job that is on product manager is actually divided between developers. Like all of us do a strategy work, and we have to come up with a lot of like artifact, which is actually more strategy than what we do, and we appreciate having the help, right? So designers are responsible for all aspects of the design. Like also like designers, like in so many of big companies, they are the one that they are making sure when we come up with the design doesn't match with like company-wide standards. which is in place. Technical writers, they are the one writing the documents. Some of them are actually technical people, some no. It's not necessary to be technical. Some people, some developers just decide to be technical writer. But they need to understand the point of view, because they actually do the document for all the stakeholders, not just for developers, not just for customers. They do that actually for CTO, CEO, for everybody. Everybody like needs some document. It's on that. And we do, as a developer, you actually wear the hat of technical writer in so many occasions. Evangelist. So I'm going to show both of these together, because I guess the most confusing roles are evangelist and dev relations. I don't know, actually, honestly, when somebody say to me, I'm an evangelist, I don't know what they do. But you got to ask, okay, what does it mean in your company to be evangelist? But what does it mean in real? Actually, not in real, let's say in paper, what does it mean to be an evangelist? So it's like evangelist and dev relations, both of them, they are there to promote the API, promote the software, right? There is a difference. Like they say, evangelists are more within the company, or if the company is small, within the community, trusted community. And dev relations or developer advocates, they are more into outside of the company in and they do the sales as well. Dev relations, sometimes they are forced to go to sales events and try to sell the product as well. They need to come up with samples, demos, and also they might go to conferences and writing blogs. It's more for dev relations, but the evangelists doing that as well. These are all for discovery, right? When, like we said, realize. So how you can come up with the realize, how people actually gonna know that you have a product, right? You got to hire people to just go to conferences like here and start writing blogs, having live videos, and say, hey, we have this, come use it. It's just, you want to sell it, not just getting money. It's like, just sell it to people that come use our product. And also they are to maximize the developer experience and make their life easy. Lead developers, so they are responsible for how of the API. So we said what, how. Actually, they are like kind of a replica of that product manager that we said in the technology, right? They are responsible for the how of the API, and they are point of contact for everything technical, like development, deployment, testing, and they are there to coordinate the team, right? And software architect is there for the architectural design details, like things like security is on them, and you want to come up with a format selection with the technology. It's normally it's better to get them in loop to make a decision about this, because they are actually advocating for the company as well, right? Company-wide, like the designer, which is just for the design, for the security and other stuff, they are advocating for the company-wide standards as well. I'm sure so many of you, if you work with customers, they have IT, they have an architect, and you have to loop in and get approval that, what we want to do for you, does it meet your requirement, your standard? And the backend developer, which is the man doing the job or the girl doing the job, it's they are implementing. And they are making sure that whatever we said, the architect is there to make sure that the design is reliable or stable. But they are the one actually making sure in real, in implementation, that if it's a good product we are making, if it's stable, yeah. And tests, QA, everything related to validating the API is on test. Test people, QA people, sometimes actually they even develop the unit tests. So it depends to the companies. They can go from functional tests, non-functional tests. All of that is on them. And the DevOps actually, this is one of the most trendiest things in the world, because it is really important. So every aspect actually of this job that we are doing, it's related to the deployment, it's on DevOps. you might have DevOps hat as a developer doing the job, but you are doing the DevOps. Like when you are making the pipeline of like your deployment, when you are actually designing dashboard for the metrics that you want to do, you are doing the DevOps job of yours, right? And like they are there to simplify the life of developers, to deploy, to measure, and all the stuff that we said. And the last one is front-end developer. You might say, oh, what's the role of front-end developer? So front-end developer is there to, like, for the API, like we said about like developer experience, right? In so many companies, there is API registry. You go there and you see, okay, what's going on? So for sure, you want to come up with a nice thing, which is easy for users to use, right? That's why front-end developers are required. So we said what, how, right? So here you can see by the roles that we said, like which one is more focused on what, or they have more impact on the what of the API, and which one are more on how of the API. Okay, we talked about the maturity model, the work domains we do, and also the roles, and all in the context of API as a product. Now it's time to talk about team, like let's say like what is the best practices now with all this knowledge that we gathered, or like we reviewed actually. So now what is the best practices for the team who are building this, right? No matter you do a strategy or you do code, you are helping building a product. Here was the maturity model. So it's just a tiny snapshot of that again, just to say that we're going to be concentrated on the maturity model again. Inception. So here, let's say it's just a review again about Inception. We said that each API has actually Inception. On Inception, we need to say what are the things that drives you to build an API. We said somewhere somebody decided that we want a product, we want an API, right? So what actually drives you to do that? Does it worth to make this API? This is the time there is a famous decision that people need to make, that they say, okay, make it or buy it, right? That shouldn't happen within the development, right? We should go like have an inception stage and say, okay, should we build it or no, right? So, and also this is the time that we said we need to define the milestones, right? Here is like the main objectives that we need to come up with, that what are the values? Who are the audience for us? I said like Stripe, they said, oh, we want to make a payment like APIs that doesn't suck, that it's better than what is in market, right? They came up with a really simple goal, and then they knew their audience. Who is the audience? The people who want to do the payment, right? So they might look easy, but we all know that you work in a company that they don't know what are they building. They don't know why are they building. That's why the direction change a lot. Like you make something, they say, oh, I don't want to release it. That's maybe because of lack of inception. So in the inception, let's say all the team are involved. Like everybody we said can be involved, but mostly this is more look like a strategy thing. And here is the time that you want to decide, should I kick off this cycle or no? Should I like go buy it, or even like don't do it at all? So it's more on product manager, let's say, but then I didn't like highlighted it here because it's like, to me, like team is involved, maybe more higher management would be involved. So I hear Inception, I just remember this all the time. You can just memorize this with the same sign. Development. So the second one was development. Here you can see like where we are. We passed Inception and now we are on the development. So for the development, what does that mean? So we said when we are developing, but then there is some conditions that you say I am in the development, right? When the API is new and it's not deployed yet, right? Or it's not available for reliable use by people. So that's when we say we are in the development phase of the API, right? This is a tricky time. As I said, you can build as much as you want and just break it. Then it's better to, in the development, if you have something that like it has the least like changeability, in future you cannot change it, it's better to just get it done in the development, because in all the cycle you can do the development job for sure, right? But this is different. This is the time that you are making the main thing. You do prototype, you make it, and you can come up with breaking changes. What is the goal? The goal here is to just go to next stage. The goal is really important. It's just we want to deploy. We don't want to stay in the development forever. There is like tons of samples in the world that people just stayed in development. They never actually deployed their product. Here we do strategy, security, design, implementation, and testing. But like, who are we suggesting to do this? And what do we do actually when you say strategy? What do you mean by that? So here is the time that we're going to design our initial strategy. And we need to test this strategy for the design and implementation, right? And then by that testing and initial, we're going to actually update the goals and tactics, right? Product owner going to take care of all the strategy when like design and develop this strategy. But to be able to test it for design and test it for implementation, we need some more technical people like designer and API lead, backend developer. You're going to see API lead and backend developer so many places tied together. That's why I said like API lead is for coordination, right? Because we are not talking about one person, 2%. It might, like you say, for that task, I need 10 people, right? Then the lead might be necessary. And as I said, I'm going to repeat it again. These are not about people. Maybe one person doing all this job. Maybe these are different people, or maybe you are a group of product owners working on that. As long as one person doing that, if you are aware of you're doing something else, then just change the hat, put the hat on the other role. That's totally fine. Because on the small companies and the startups, it's just, they have like 3 people doing a huge product, right? For the design, so here is the time that we're going to design the initial interface model, right? And also we're going to test this design for the user perspective. And also we need to validate if this design is implementable. That's why we need the designer to do that. And also for validate, when we say implement, the designer himself or herself cannot do that, right? Then we need some technical people. And for usability, like here in the design, we need to make sure this design, like customers, would they like it or no, like test it. That's why we need people who are more into like discovery, like evangelists, dev relations, like because they go to so many places and they have a lot of knowledge about this. They are big help on this. Implementation. Here is the time that we can develop prototypes and we can actually test this interface design and this implementation, and this is the time we do the initial implementation, right? Now you see in the implementation, everybody who has hands-on, you'll see here, like API lead, developers, and the architect, technical writer for sure to do the documentation for what we are developing or helping us, or us as a developer just doing the technical writing at the same time, right? Testing. So here we need to actually come up with the testing strategy. So you want to know, like in future or just in development, what is the strategy to do the testing? And also for the design actually, and also for implementation, which test QA people can help us big here. And the security. We need to define our security requirements on the development, right? And also we need to come up with we need to validate those design that the designer come up, and also come up with our strategy for the development, sometimes for all the cycle, that what is our strategy. That's why the API architect and for defining the security for the implementation, we need the tech people, like people who are able to develop as well, so to give idea on this. Okay, so we're done with development. So now it's time to go to introduction. We said on development, what was the goal? The goal was to just go to the next step, right? All we did was that just develop because you don't want to stay there forever. There is something in the development phase that you want to do the best, but then you have to do some strategy. You have to say, okay, when is the time to just finish this best product I'm building and just deploy it, right? That's actually the tricky one. That's a hidden thing in the development phase. Introduction, it's a goal of development. Now we hit the goal and we are deploying our product, right? This is the time, as I said, you open the doors, you say, okay, come use my API. I have some product, come use it, right? The goal is, again, go to next stage, go to realization. So it means that invest on discovery and gather customers and just introduce this to world. Say, hey, I have this, please come use it. And then just because you want to hit your objective. Your objective was that, like in that example, I want to just have 10 banks as my customer, right? In the introduction, the same. So we do deployment is the main one. We do monitoring, testing, design, implementation. As I said, implementation can be everywhere because we need to implement. Discovery. So we need to invest on discovery here, and documentation. Documentation, it's like it's super silent, but it's one of the most effective things in the discovery to just gather people as your customer. In the introduction, so deployment, we said, is the main one. You're going to deploy. That's clear. So then you need to deploy the instance, and also you need to make this API available, right? When you deploy it, you have to have a pipeline making sure, okay, it is available. Like if I bring it down, I can just fix it in a second, right? And also, like for future, just come up with this strategy you want for your deployment. So every time I talk about strategy, product manager coming, right? Because actually, and also product manager is the one which is deploying. If you are deploying your product, you are doing some strategy work, means that you are having the product owner hat on you because you are now owning the product, doing the deployment. Discovery is here to hit the goal. It needs the most investment. So invest in marketing, engagement, and also findability of your API. Just make sure that people find it. That's why you need evangelists at dev relations. If you don't have it, like as I said, different hat developers should go and do the same job, right? The documentation, as I said, regarding the same thing, it's one of the most effective things for discovery. And the design, we're gonna go for improvement for sure, like all over the place. So that's what we do. Like we don't come up with breaking changes here because we are more about improvement. Because now it's the time we just deploy. We don't want to just we observe like one customer and then come with breaking change, and then you're gonna lose them as well, right? And the implementation, again, we want to optimize like all over the cycle. We're gonna do the changes, code changes. And also, this is the time for the implementation. So the front-end developer, you're going to have it. As we said, we are investing on the discovery, right? It's more of implementation, but just to hit the goal of discovery, that front-end developer is going to be really useful here. And the testing. So you're going to test the API, like security, implementation, and all of that. That's why, because so here, let's say there is a hidden thing here. You just deploy it, right? So as we say on security, you want your product to be available for good users, right? Being a good usage for good users. That's why security here is more important. Maybe in development we invested, but this is the time we have the chance to test it and improve the security. And monitoring, you need to collect the data. We have to do that. Otherwise, we don't know how to be better, right? And so for monitoring, API lead is here because sometimes DevOps might not know actually what to monitor, right? They are there to give us the dashboard, all the tooling thing to do that. But we need, like, normally we need somebody more technical to say, hey, I need to focus on this one. I need some alarm set on this. And normally they do the first one and we continue the rest. Good. Realize. So now it's the time, actually, the API is realized. Now it's so important. We actually observed people realized our product. Now it's the time to keep it available for them. It's like you want to make, like, keep them happy, and then that they go and say others, hey, like, there is something like this, come use it, and this is really important. So then on realize, just being available is actually a big deal, right? So, like, in the realize, what does it mean? Like, the API is published, but it is being used in a way, let's say it realizes its objective. Like, my objective was that, like, I wanted to do an API, like, for example, to do transshipment. It's doing that, right? So the objective that we defined, it's hitting that. Maybe it's realized by people, but, like, it's not, we are not doing our objective. Maybe we can say over there, we are not realized yet because we didn't hit our objective that we wanted to do, right? And also, like, the value, the realization value is going upward. What is the goal? Stay here. Stay and realize as much as possible. That's a good place to be. So if you are there, it means that because of that condition that we said the value go up. So you are there, you are not still there, right? You are there growing. So then the goal is that stay there. How to stay there? Be available, be consistent, be there, right? So, like, on realize, I always come to my mind that the star is born thing. That's why I come up with this star sign for this. So the same, we do deployment again, testing, discovery, change management, and documentation. Deployment is really important on realize. You don't want to go with breaking thing, right? You don't want to break your production. So again, as I said, you want to improve that deployment pipeline that you had. Why? Because of being available and stay and realize as much as possible. That's why we need DevOps. The change management. We're gonna go with optimization all over the cycle. That's why we have change management, right? So we need to come up with a strategy that what is the priorities to actually change and how to do that. That's why product manager is in place, and improvements, design, implementation. So all hands-on implementation and design are here in the change management. And the architect, because of the security aspects, is really important. As I said, you want to be available, but just for good users, right? And the testing, again, improvement, testing the security of that. Just again, being available. So that's why you do testing and discovery. So you want to stay here, right? There is more investment actually required here. Why? You want to actually improve your onboarding. You want to stay here and have, like, raise in your realization values, right? That's why you need to invest more in the discovery and marketing the API. Like, people you see here are listed, all are discovery people, and the documentation. Again, for discovery, you want to improve your documentation. You want to stay there, then you have to do it good, right? Maintenance. Now, let's say I keep saying that, oh, you want to be good, stay there. Now you haven't been that lucky, and then you see that, okay, it's not like the realized values, actually it's not going upward, it's not even staying the same, it's going downward. It means that you are losing customers, but you still have some active customers, right? So then you go to the maintenance stage. So means that you have to just keep the API running. That's all. It might bring some income for you. You don't want to kill it, but it's just, it doesn't worth to invest more in it, right? In the maintenance, as I said, so the goal was to keep the API running, but how? like we need to do a lot of monitoring here. We need to observe data, see that how people using that and how the API or the product doing, right? That's why we need to gather data. For here, like we need to optimize definitely the system, because now we are focused on this. It's not like we don't want to do a lot of patch. We are in maintenance. We want to just save money and don't do a lot of work. That's why we need to optimize this monitoring system to make sure when there is a problem, are we seeing the problem? Are we seeing the proper problem? Because we don't have time to change it anymore, right? And also here, there is a strategy thing as well. Like this product manager or product owner is observing the metrics to see, should we retire the API or no? That's most of the time we actually decide here. Why? You see in the monitoring that one customer that was using that, they are not using it anymore. And you say, okay, I have a lot of servers that this API is hosted there and a lot of money, and I'm not making that anymore. Maybe it's a time to retire the API and just go for a new one, right? Retirement is not end of era. So here, like if I say, so here it's a cycle, right? There is a purpose to have it as a cycle. The purpose is that you go from here, and then in the development, we said new API or actually replacement, right? So it means that here, if you retire, you can go back, right? You can do the same API properly, or the way that you can make money off that API. So yeah, and here we need to definitely support the existing users, and also we need to know that what are the changes. So architects are actually amazing to come up with this, to know what are the changes for the quality of that, because you want to keep it running, right? And also for planning, the product manager for sure. And if there was any change required, the people who are doing the development, which are API lead and backend development. And also if there was any change on deployment, because you want to keep it running. So then DevOps. Last one, retirement. We said product manager is there observing the metrics to see, okay, when is the time to make the decision to retire this API, right? So that's when the decision, like we make the decision to retire it. There is like multiple reasons for retirement. It's not just because we don't make money, right? Money can be one of them. It's financially, it's not beneficial anymore, right? So I don't know if you guys like, Strava, for example, they had APIs for the health, but then financially they said it doesn't work. They just published something that this is the strategy for the retirement and we won't have these APIs anymore. Or there is changes in technology, like Google retired their APIs like every single day, like Google Maps, they just retired, right? Said, okay, the technology changed. Now we're going to come up with other APIs. Versioning as well, right? Twitter actually retired their version 1 API, but they come up with proper strategy. They say, okay, we are retiring. Now what to use, right? We have this when we retire that. So it means that before ending the cycle, another one was actually started in the introduction, right? So they had for Twitter was that, too soon. So in Twitter, they've been here for V2, for the V1, they've been retired, right? So, and for security concerns, and that's a good actually thing. Like I heard that, Instagram for security, actually, they retired their APIs. They said, we won't have that thing. What is the goal? The goal here is to withdraw the API product. That's all we do. So, and here is like, I put this to say, when you retire, go in a good time, right? Go good, enjoy. So the same about product. When it doesn't work, just retire it, right? So, and I put this rest in peace, because it is like, just a product has a life cycle. You shouldn't keep it forever. And also it's going to be easier for us developers. You get to do a new nice thing, right? But here, as I said, all of those, I said they actually announced a proper strategy. They said, oh, we're going to retire, right? Blogs, and they had some API in place. So then we need the strategy work here to come up with the retirement strategy, which product manager is actually a good choice to do here. And so to designing that strategy, we need the architect and the lead, because there might be some technical things involved, right? And the change management, just you had a plan to do that. Now communicate that about by dev relations, by evangelists, and also the technical writers. As I said, like on Twitter, there was V2, there was full documentation there, and I'm sure like they had a lot of events, conferences about now what is this V2 that. So these are all the strategy, but like change management to meet that strategy work, right? And also change the deployment architecture. Like you want to remove all the pipeline, you want to remove the servers, maybe you just deploy in one server and then you just retire. Like, let's say not retire, you reuse those servers for the other product. So here is some success story actually about some, like you hear them as API driven companies or products. So these are like in Julio, they have a boost here as well. They are really successful. I use them personally. Like the customer onboarding is amazing. The documentation is amazing. Salesforce, I don't know if any of you used Salesforce, but it changed the world. Like people like use Salesforce, they know without that now nobody can think to live, I mean, without that. And Stripe, as we said, and eBay, they have amazing APIs. And Google, like as all you know, I'm sure like you use it in your profession. So they looked at API as a product, means that it is important, it's a worthy to invest on it. It's not just some utilities for my work, right? And to summarize and just giving an action thing for me, myself, and all of us, let's continue the journey. Use this API as a product mentality, because we saw some sample like successful companies that they did it just with this approach. They invested on that and they've been successful. And also like come up with the API products that meet your user need, right? It's like not because of the industry trend. It's just you find a user who's got a problem and then do a product for them, not just because it's trendy to have like APIs for healthcare. Go and do that. No, like just there is like most of successful companies, they come up with ideas because they looked at users, what is their problem, and then they come up with the solution, not just like cloning other things. So, and also work based on the goals and the talent in your company and like the context of your organization, right? If you have a company full of front-end developers, and it's better instead of like copying from other companies, like working cultures of others, like just come up with ideas within your context, right? That's like, these are the ways that I figured successful ones did. They are always new, like they know the problem, they have a new product, and you say, boom, oh my God, this, I never thought of this, or maybe I thought of this, I didn't know I can come up with a product for this. And that's it, like, and thank you. Here is my contact again, if you've been interested. And so I'm almost done with the time, but we have 5 minutes. So I was hoping that we can actually do some questions and discussions if you want, like if what I said made sense to you or things like that. Yeah.
Do you have a link to your slide deck?
Pardon?
Do you have a URL link to your slide deck?
Yeah, I'll share that. Okay. Yeah. I'll put it on my Twitter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just go back to the previous slide.
Yeah. Oops. Thank you.